everyone, and welcome to Jurassic Plastic. We are here with yet another Carnegie Diplodocus. This time it is the updated Diplodocus, the 2007 version. And, well, you know how much I like the classic original Carnegie collection. I think the ones that came out in 1988 and 1989, to me, they have their own charm. I think they're immune from criticism in terms of scientific accuracy and things like that. They're classics. I really don't necessarily care that they're a little blocky, they're a little clunky looking, they're a little outdated looking. Once we start getting into the 2000s Carnegies, I'm going to hold these to a much higher scientific standard, a much higher aesthetic standard. And this one, to be honest, comes out about in the middle of both of those standards to me. The later Diplodocus was a complete remake of the 1989 version, but this 2007 Diplodocus is completely redone. It's not in the same pose, it's not in the same color pattern. It's basically a completely new model. They really could have probably gotten away with labeling this as a different species. Maybe if they had more idea of Diplodocid diversity at that time, we would have gotten a Gallimimus or maybe even a Supersaurus or something in place of this. The interesting thing to me is that this is intended to be an update of the original Diplodocus Carnegii, appropriately enough, and it's an update down to the size. This is almost the identical length to the original Diplodocus. If you measure this nose to tail along all these curves, it's about 26.5 or 27 centimeters long. That makes it the same scale as the original, and you can see that it is a lot skinnier. Now, they did update the original Diplodocus in about 1997 to have a skinnier tail, sort of like this, which matches the fossils better, although I think you could probably get away with widening the tail musculature here around the hips, just because all dinosaurs probably had nice, wide, rounded tails, at least at the base. But for the knowledge of the time, in 2006 when this was sculpted, I think that's fine. They do get into showing a little bit of more of what could be scale texture here compared to the original. The original had that sort of wrinkly, sort of rectangular skin texture pattern going on, and this one has much more of a bumpy pattern. I would almost even describe this as slightly spiny. And one interesting omission here is the lack of any spines along the back. Now, we know that even going back to the early 90s, Diplodocid fossils, which would now probably be assigned to the Barosaur Catodocus, not necessarily Diplodocus itself, had sort of iguana-like spines, not only along the ridge of its back, but also possibly covering the sides of its body as well. And those are nowhere to be seen here, so I'm not sure if they decided to be a little bit different when sculpting this, or if they were erring on this conservative side, given that there's not too much published detail about what those spines were like and how much of the body they did cover. One thing that's interesting to me is that if you actually read that original paper, a lot of those spines were found, and the longest ones were found towards the tip of the tail, possibly even giving it some kind of soft tissue, stegosaur-like thagomizer back here. Obviously, they didn't go that route, although they did highlight the whiplash-like nature of the tail, giving it this nice little curly Q with some blue highlights on it. And once again, I think that's inspired by the kind of curly depiction of the tip, the whiplash end of the tail in Walking with Dinosaurs. The neck is much more vertical in this model compared to the original. I'm guessing that's based on research in the late 90s and early 2000s that said that this is the way Diplodocid necks should be held, that they would not be able to go much more vertically than that. I think more recent research has kind of overturned that and said that you could probably get this neck up to a minimum of like a 45-degree angle, probably even higher than that, approaching what the original Diplodocus actually had. but this is pretty accurate for the standards of its time. One thing I would nitpick here is the feet. Now, they did update the feet to remove those claws. To remove the claws that the original Diplodocus had. It has only one claw, which is accurate. It's even given a couple different shades of gray paint here. However, I think the hands should be a little bit more columnar, not as spread out and elephant-like. And they are definitely incorrect in not having a horseshoe shape. There should be a gap in the pad of the foot. But hey, it's closer. It's certainly closer than the 2002 Camarasaurus, which still had the old school sauropod hands. And they definitely did fix the feet, which are more accurate. The 3 clawed inner toes, which curve outwards, and then the just little nubs here that have no claws. So as far as scientific criticism goes, I think it's a definite improvement. The head sculpt is definitely far and away better than the original Diplodocus. It's much more detailed. You can see the teeth restricted to the front of the mouth. You can see a lot more definition. It has the nostrils down towards the tip instead of up on top. And overall, it's just unarguably a better head sculpt. It is depicted in a walking posture, which is basically shown in an accurate way with the feet on this side of the body forward and the feet on that side of the body backwards, which a lot of sculptures and figures and things kind of get wrong with quadrupedal animals. But I have to say, it comes across as a little stiff, and I'm wondering if that kind of rigid attitude of the model is because of the research saying that they didn't have much flexibility in the neck. I feel like even a more upright, or not necessarily swan-like, but some kind of more dynamic pose to the neck here rather than just gently swept slightly to the side would have given it a little bit more, I don't know, dynamism. It just kind of seems like a stick with legs, the way that it's sculpted. It's not my favorite pose of the Carnegie line for sure. The little feature scales on the back also seem a little bit of an afterthought to me. You can see that there are a few here and there, but there's no real pattern to them. They are painted a different color. They're this dark olive green. But, I wish that they had been spread out in some kind of a more natural looking pattern rather than just some random warts. And the overall color scheme is nice. I like it better than the original for sure. However, I have to say that it looks a little funky to me. I think this lighter sort of mint green wash on the top, the way that it blends into the darker olive green, which is outlined with black highlights here, and then a slight orange or reddish wash along that. It just looks weird. I don't know why there's a gradient on the green and then a hard edge here on the darker green. I feel that they should have gone with either a dark green stripe to find on both sides or just omitted this other dark green color. I'm wondering if maybe they were going for like, I don't know, it's just gotten out of the water. The bottom of it is a little bit more contrasty than the top. Maybe it's supposed to be mud, or I don't know. I'm not quite sure what's going on. They also have a slightly different green here along the ridge of the back, which seems like it's trying to highlight a ridge of neural spines, almost like an afterthought, like they didn't really sculpt that in the amount of detail they wanted, so they wanted to bring that out with some shading instead. I don't know, the paint job on the front end of this animal from the neck up is beautiful. Once again, let me highlight the head with the blues and the yellows. It's really nice. But the overall effect, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. And it's not like this is an inexpensive model either. I don't think they knocked it out of the park necessarily with this one. but it is one of the most accurate Diplodocus you're going to find on the market today. Give you a quick look around here. From every different angle, we can see the underside is this yellowish unpainted plastic. There's the belly stamp, and the bottom of the feet have a little bit of detailing on them. None of that mold fatigue issue that we saw in the original Diplodocus, and it's got this nice little waddle of kind of like bunched up skin. That's kind of cool. So it's a really nice sculpt. Can't say I'm the biggest fan of the pose or even necessarily of the paint job. Let me bring out my little Marx caveman here for scale. He looks like a pretty good size compared to this Diplodocus, coming up to about the knee. If he was going to stand up straight, he's actually probably a little skinny for a Neanderthal, but you get the idea. Just for the sake of comparison, here it is with the 1993 version, which is a retool of the 1989 version. You can see they're pretty much the same size, minus the arched back, minus the more vertical neck on this one, and minus the curly cued tail here at the end. All right, so that is my quick review of the updated Carnegie Diplodocus. If you'd like to see more reviews like this, drop me a comment with any kind of models you want to see, especially Carnegie models, especially, you know, little known variants and things like that you might want to have a quick walk around of or a closer look at. And make sure to hit that subscribe button to get more content from Jurassic Plastic. Thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time.